My name is Sarah McGill. I'm an executive director in admissions, and I'm the director for the Alumni Schools Committee here at the university.
And my name is Chris Quintos. I'm an admissions counselor, and I also work under Sarah for the Alumni Schools Committee. I'm also a recent alum and have worked with the Alumni Schools Committee as a student for about 2 years.
So I wasn't sure what to expect in terms today, if we would have a mix of current ASC members, if we would have individuals that were looking for information. So I was planning on maybe just a brief overview of what the program is, but then really wanted to delve into if individuals had particular questions or concerns. So this is really intended to be informal and conversational. So if there's any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to jump in.
Did you send out an email a few days ago asking for possible support? I got an email asking if I've been interested in helping, and I haven't responded to this yet. And the questions were like, had to do with time commitment, like how much time could you put into doing potential students and things like that.
We're going to get into, there's lots of different ways that we could use our alumni time, not just for interviews, which I think is the most common, but we also have individuals help us with college fairs. We're looking something new this year to help how we yield our students, but we can get into that a little bit more. And I'm very fortunate we have two of our current ASC chairs here, so with Albert Chang and Katrina Vidal. So feel free to jump in if there's anything that you'd like to echo. So just real briefly, for those of you who aren't as familiar with the ASC, what is it, right? It's a group of 3,000 alumni throughout the world that help support and contribute to the admissions effort here at the university. Frankly, what that means is you help inform students about the university, you help assess if they're a great fit for our campus, and then you help yield them if we invite them to attend. We have volunteers throughout the world. Some of our more active chapters, as you can imagine, are here on campus in the Chicago area, although I think our northeastern region last year experienced tremendous growth. We are the hot school this year, the University of Chicago. It was interesting. We're in a little bit of a transition where in 2008 we had about 13,000 applications. Last year we experienced a 42% growth where we received 20,000 applications. This year we expect that number to go up. And what does that mean? Well, we need people, our alums, to help us get the word out about what the university is, what they do.
Do you think that increasing applications, just to toss the question up, was it more attributable to more attributable to the fact that you moved to the common application, or is that less of a factor than I would think?
There's a demographic bubble too.
Is it? Okay, that's one of the factors.
There is a demographic bubble.
What year did we switch to the common application? Does anyone remember?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. But I think the impact of that didn't really happen until like the second year that it had been in place.
I would like
so last year.
People like us more.
That's
what
we'd
I was
like
hoping the
to
answer
do,
would be.
and I agree. I think we're a more popular school, but we do have a demographic bubble too.
Well, there was I think a shift in how the admissions office really went out and spoke about the university. I know in the last year and then definitely this year, there's been a concerted effort to have more admissions counselors on the road for a longer period of time, going out and talking about the university, not necessarily as a way to promote or sell, but in a way to talk about, when you think of highly selective schools, they're not just on the coast, but the University of Chicago, this is what you can get here. What is it? Chris, do you have anything to add here?
And we did the same with the alumni as well. I mean, we've increased the participation of alumni at college fair events. So it's really about getting, not only getting the message out to appeal to students who are smart and who would be interested and would feel themselves being a part of the community on this campus, but also getting our face out more, especially not only through the admissions counselors, but also with the college fairs and the alumni. So.
And I would just add, not that I'm shutting up from saying too much, but I think I've seen a marked difference in the way that the admissions office has taken an approach to marketing, or whatever we call it, branding the university. It's all for the better.
Good.
Letting the alumni do more, like as ambassadors for the university and college fairs has also been a terrific, I think, branding opportunity for the college.
Well, there's nobody better to speak to what college life is here at the university rather than our alums. So how do we get them out? And how do we get you talking about your experience here? How do we get you talking about the great education you've obtained here? That's really been crucial and is going to be crucial as we continue receiving increased applications. Yes?
How many times do you go out to talk to people to go through this region? How many times do you?
So the admissions counselors, we're all broken up by region. Sarah, since she works really strongly with certain programs, I don't think you have a region.
So I've been in the admissions office for about 2 months, so forgive me. I'm looking to Chris he's my wingman today. So I haven't experienced life on the road yet. I was not given a territory, so I could really focus on the alumni efforts and really making the Alumni Schools Committee and get involved in defining what it is moving forward.
But we have a rough estimate of about, was it 20 counselors?
Mm-hmm.
Is that
22 now, I think.
22 counselors who go on the road. We try to break up the regions so that we read a good amount of applications that, of course, would keep us busy during the reading season. And we have a much smaller territory. For example, last year, some of our counselors had territories that are twice the size of the average territory this year. My territory, I had just returned from one travel bout. I'll be on the road again this Wednesday. I have Florida and Alabama and South Carolina. So we're trying to increase our outreach to many different schools. And it usually happens within somewhere between 3 to 5 weeks, depending on what your territory is like and what your other duties are in the office during the fall. So usually between September and October, right before the deadlines for the applications. And then again in the spring, we go, the counselors also take a few trips, not as often, but to reach out to those juniors who will be looking to apply to schools the following year.
Michael?
So in my region, Nina, the admissions counselor who covers our area, Shoshi Kruger, she was there, I would say, sometime between 4 and 6 times during the last admissions cycle. 4 and probably somewhere around. It's a big delta there. The students like to speak.
So we've really, if you look at the admissions counselors, maybe 2-3 years ago, they were spending about 2 weeks on the road. So not only have we increased the amount of counselors we have, but we've also increased the amount of time that they travel so that they're able to hit more schools, they're able to reach out to more people.
Do you want to talk about how we're breaking the rules into with the increased applications?
For the ASC?
Mm-hmm.
So nice segue. So what we wanted to talk about today, so that's the ASC in a nutshell, right? But how can we look to our alumni, or if you're thinking about becoming involved in the ASC or maybe thinking about becoming differently, there's really kind of 3 areas that we look for. Informing students about the university, so talking about your experience, talking about what you know. That's most frequently done through our college fairs. We ask for assistance in assessing students. I think the most commonly known aspect or piece of the ASC is taking part in the interviews. So we offer alumni interviews to our students as a way to actually meet with somebody. This is oftentimes the only face-to-face interaction they have with the university representative. It's designed to be a conversational, informal meeting so that you can learn a little bit about the student can learn a little bit about your experience. The third piece is how do we yield those students? So for our conversation that we just had with Albert, but when students are admitted and we want them to come, how can we get you involved in helping to let our students know that this is the right choice for them? These are going to be the students that we want. So how do we really tell them that this is where they want to go and help them make the decision?
So of those 3 areas, I'm just wondering, it sounds like the first 2 are long-standing. I'm just wondering, is the yield part I haven't been involved in this aspect. Is the yield part something you always do, but now with so many new people, you're going to need a whole lot more?
I think so yielding a class is always something that's been there, but now that we've when we increased our amount of applications, we didn't increase the amount of seats that were allotted. So I guess one can say we're considered more of a highly selective institution now. So when we admit students, when we extend an offer, there are probably students that are also considering offers with other Ivy League schools. So I think that there's more of an effort on our part to not only get them to apply, but also how do we get them to come here.
And there were efforts in the past through the admissions office that sort of tried to yield these students in-house. For example, we always have a phone-a-thon after the decisions are released for our current students to call the applicants as well as their family and try to encourage them to come to campus or to enroll into the University of Chicago. We also have campus visits days where we have students who are admitted come to campus, take tours, stay in the dorms for a day, and get a real sense of what campus is like. But with the increase in applications and so forth, it's really sort of difficult to continue those activities and still try to bring down our yield so that we're appealing to more students, and when they are admitted, that they do feel that the University of Chicago is their best choice.
Well, and an alumni, quite frankly, you can play an important role in that, and it's just not something that we've had a lot of time or involvement in.
I will say one thing. This year, we did a yield party in New York, which was the first time in a long time. I think that there's been one in New York, and it was extremely successful. I think it could have been more successful had we had it a little earlier in the month. Our party, it just happened to be whatever the weekend was. It was so close to the decision date that most of the people that we had were coming anyway, and were just coming to meet classmates, which is still nice. But it was extremely helpful, and I organized the volunteers for this one because Katrina was out of town. That alumni were there to speak to people and give them, and their parents more importantly, an assurance that this was going to be a great education for their kids. So that's, I think, a really important part.
Just like in New York, we had our first yield event hosted by an alumni in Dallas. So it is a relatively new program activity. It was hosted by a very successful alum at his business office. I was unfortunately here at an alumni break governor meeting. But
that's the same thing.
But I wish I could have been there. But you're right. The feedback that I heard from one of the parents who knows the dynamics of it's so competitive to get these students to come to this college. There's so many great colleges out there. The real dynamic is when you have the party. And she felt we left the wrong thing. She thought it was too late. My intel was it was too late in the month of April.
Katrina.
I want to emphasize what's already been brought up about talking with parents of the prospective students, because I'm in the Northeast, I'm in Westchester County, although I do go to the events for New York, and it's all New Jersey, Westchester, New York, all the boroughs, all those types of parties bring all those people together. But frequently, because it's that region where there are so many competing schools that are all excellent institutions, and there's a real focus by a lot of parents on keeping their children like within a couple hours of drive from home. It's really valuable to have alumni at these events talking to the parents, because the kids don't really want to talk to the alumni. The kids want to talk to each other, and so the alumni can really have an impact on talking to parents about the opportunities at the university. And I would even recommend that we try to get people from CAPS to come to these events.
Really?
And also make a little bit of a presentation about what the university does about funding opportunities for undergraduates and as they graduate, because I think people are really concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add to what Katrina just said. That was definitely my experience at our Dallas Fort Worth send-off party. Students don't want to really talk to me unless I insist that I talk to them. I close myself on the students. I did, frankly, because I'm there. When I do a Saturday, I'm going to talk to everybody. But the students want to talk to each other. The reason why the person who I want to talk to was the parent.
And I just want to support everything Katrina Michael just said. At the Princeton send-off party, the kids were on one side, the alumni give a wonderful home. They ignored us entirely. My own daughter, who perpetually ignores me. And the other side of things, but amazing how many of the parents came up to me. Well, I'm still worried about the neighborhood. I'm still concerned about this. I hear I can get cheap flights to the Southwest from Philadelphia Airport. Any number of topics. But the parents literally sieged on me. I mean, there was like a queue. There were like 6 parents, each one coming up and spending time. But it was fine because, you know, it's a bit of a marketing job when we work with the alumni schools as well. And saying, sometimes you get parents, even during the early interview process or college fair, says, well, is it, you know, I don't know about this school. And saying, you know, we don't believe we're in any second. We don't look at ourselves as being second place to any of the quote-unquote Ivies that are so prominent, especially when you live in Princeton, which is all dominant. I said, we'll match you against them any day of the week. What is it you want to talk about? But then again, what is it your child seeking?
Well, I think that's why the interviews are so appealing to students too. It's a way to hear about what's going on and talk to somebody that's actually experienced it. So the yield events are another way to do that.
Can you talk about the impact for admissions of the rising number of students who participate in high school summer programs on campuses, and how much awareness do you think among your volunteers there is that the university has one, that the University of Chicago has a summer program for high school students? And how could we better maximize that? Because you're capturing students younger.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think so I don't know so much as how that plays into the decision-making, the actual admissions process. To your point, though, about trying to capture students early, there was reference made earlier about the publications and the amount of and types of outreach that we're doing. So we really focused this year and last year on explaining and creating pieces that talked about things that were unique to the University of Chicago. You got a copy of our core piece, but really getting out more about UChicago. We spent a lot of time looking at a yield strategy. So our students that were admitted, they would always hear from the university at a set period of time. We're shifting focus now to our younger students. So as we become aware of students that we would like to see matriculate when they're ready, or if we receive requests for information, how do we start marketing to them when they're sophomores, when they're freshmen, so that it's more of a gradual story that culminates when they're in their senior year?
Well, not only that, is they have it's a residential program, so they have an on-campus experience.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And to my mind, because I work at the Graham School, the continuing education school, we are not currently tracking, as absurd as this might be. I have asked the woman that runs this program in her office, the university is not tracking whether these students end up at the University of Chicago. And to me, this is just absurd.
But
yeah, we should.
We are not utilizing this summer program that is running out of the continuing education division. In my mind, and some of the students are international. And when I was like, the Graham School does not have the money in its marketing account to really push this out, but it is a huge opportunity for college admissions to capture the attention of parents and the parents are making this decision. Any of us who've been parents, parents have a big say in where these young students do a summer college or university experience. And if you can do a better job of capturing those parents, maybe through your volunteer network that you already have, I urge you to take greater advantage.
Yeah, we should talk after to make sure that we connect on that.
And quite frankly, I mean, of course, the majority of students who apply to the University of Chicago haven't participated in these summer programs. But when they do, it pretty much speaks for itself. The students, when you ask them why they're interested in the University of Chicago, the first thing they're probably going to say if they had participated in these programs is that they had participated in them and living on campus and working, taking classes and so forth. You know, you're going to tell that this student could, you know, he or she loved it at the University of Chicago and he or she could fit there. And I'd met some students on the road who had participated, and, you know, just to let the alumni know, these things do speak for themselves. But yes, we definitely need to do a little bit more tracking on that. So,
can we go here first?
I'm Laura Haynes, President of the Alumni Board of Governors, so thanks for being here. One of the optional clubs and some of the infrastructure that exists for the volunteers in place, how are you thinking about it, recognizing you've only been on the job 2 months with this?
Well,
how are you thinking about utilizing our volunteers that are already in the field in different ways?
This has been a question or I guess a point that has been raised to me numerous times about how do we start thinking about this differently. And I guess the ASC is unique in the volunteer clubs is that it is the largest alumni volunteer club on campus, volunteer network, but it isn't actually coordinated by or overseen within Alumni Relations and Development. So I understand that there's always that conversation about how do we better align efforts or how do we better track so that there can be some parallels. I know that's something that we need to pursue. I'd like to get, given where we're going in the admissions office, where the university's going, I think it's essential that we try to maximize and get as many volunteers as possible. And I don't see doing that unless we can collaborate with some of the other clubs.
I think DC most recently at the Phoenix Fest, which is sort of the Young Alumni Gathering, most recently did a sort of an ASC volunteer drive through that network. So I feel like there are a lot of synergies, and we look forward to having that conversation.
Okay.
How many people are in ASC right now? I should know this, but I don't know. Roughly ballpark, is it 2,000?
So active, we have somewhere between 28 and 3,200.
28, 32.
Yeah, it's a big range, but
Yes.
I've done this for my undergraduate college, and I find that it's good to talk about your own experience. Mine goes back quite a number of years, but I do stay in touch with the university and kind of the library society, and I'm on the MedCap program. I think I like this very much because this really is something that we can talk about. But when the class that you're admitting in 2011 will be really the class of 2015.
right.
Since there's been a lot of talk about what's going on at the university and all these new initiatives, I think we need to have, if we're going to be ambassadors, a better sense of talking points. So I was wondering if you could, and I'm in communications. So I'm wondering, something like this, if you could have U of C class of 2015, and then just say all the new things, like the Logan Arts Center, the Mansudo Library, all the things that are going to come on board or that have, been instituted in the last 5 years. Because I can talk about the University of Chicago from 60 to 80, but I really would like to know the University of Chicago from 2000 to 2015. How can we convince these people that we're not standing? We've got all these new things that really will appeal to these kids, especially the arts students, because that's going to be a big push.
Right. So we have a number of publications that have been created, but they're very dispersed. So unless you're going to take the time to flip through, to your point, flip through each one and identify what's new, I think that we could do a better job of getting something out there. A hint sheet.
We need talking points, and if we can have those talking points for the parents, I think that we can give them a better sense that we really not only are getting more applications, but there's a reason for all those applications, and it's all this new activity.
Sheldon?
To that point, I think that's a very good thing of having sort of a talking points. But one thing I would say, and as a younger alumni, I feel that it's important to utilize the younger alumni in your clubs, because even though they're not at the college anymore, they know what was in the works. They know, what the most recent things are that are going on. And yes, we should all be as informed as we're supposed to. But I think in terms of the yield parties that I found, the young alumni that I had there were talking to the students, and the distinguished alumni were talking to the.
Michael, did you want to add some fancy dancing there? Michael?
Yeah, so 2 points on that. I found in my experience at college fairs, it's good to have meetings me, someone who graduated in the 80s there, to be more of an elder statesman, I guess you could say. But having a young alumnus at the table, they could address a lot of the more recent student life changes that I do not. So that's one solution that I will try to have someone there.
I can say that, but I'm saying if it's a one-on-one situation where you're talking to somebody else.
Yeah.
You're talking about the one-on-one. The one-on-one is an interesting one because Sarah's right. They have a lot of publications. I didn't read them all when I started doing these college fairs, but slowly as people started asking questions that I couldn't answer, I'd try and point them at some publication or point them to the website, and then I'd go home and try and read some stuff, try and figure out what the answer was. So the next time I knew it, So I've read enough of the publications. I know which ones. There's certain cheat sheets that they hand out that we're not supposed to give to outside people, frankly, that really can spell out a lot of the answers. But it's a trial and error process, really. It's not until you get some of the questions that you figure out what people are asking, and then you have to go back. That's what I found.
Katrina.
Well, I want to find out from you what you really think the value of the college fairs is, because I have gone to a few in Westchester that were very targeted, like one particular high school that had a college fair, and then another one over in Suffolk County. But years ago, I was sent to one, and my story is, and this is true, I was at the University of Chicago, and Princeton was on my right, and Yonkers School of Beauty was on my left. I mean, the crowd, you can only imagine. And I was really not sure if that was a valuable use of my time, or if we were even reaching the people we were trying to.
So as an admissions counselor who just returned from the road, there are some of these fairs, and some of the alumni know as well, that sometimes, maybe the high school isn't, most of the students aren't looking for a place like the University of Chicago, but, at some of these high schools as well.
The high school one was a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But for many of these high schools as well, they don't have the resources to sort of polish the students to let them know, what is good fit for them. These are smart students, sometimes they're national merit finalists, AP 5s, IB curriculum, but their parents and their counselors may not be as prepared as most other schools. So sometimes, when you have students who come up to the table and have no idea what the University of Chicago is, but when they start hearing about the credentials and their opportunities and so forth, that's where the college fairs can definitely make a huge strive. You also have those other college fairs where it can be a collaboration of great schools in the area, or for one really excellent school, a preparatory school, where the students are going to know the University of Chicago, and it's at that point where the alumni do a great job in trying further sell them and try to see if it's a perfect fit. Because even though we're getting a large increase in applications, we're still looking for a good fit, even more so for the University of Chicago, to find the students who are going to be happy, thriving, and will really cherish the University of Chicago education.
We need to put a little bit more, I hesitate to say structure around that, because you don't want to get anything too structured, but we need to do a better job about keeping track of some of those ones that are not so good, and then identifying those. Yeah, identifying those that we definitely want to make sure that we get somebody at.
And we'll definitely take feedback. We're going to ask for feedback from our alumni if this fair was worth the time, worth the effort, and listen to the comments.
I'm so surprised when we had this conversation last week. We looked at 3 college fairs in New Jersey coming up. We looked at one that I've been at and one of my volunteers have been at, and over the course of 3 years, we've realized it's not our target market. It's just we have very few people, we have limited resources. There's no point going to a college fair where we have almost a 0 interest rate. It's not our market. It's not the students would likely look at our school or a sister school along the same levels. So we eliminated it. It's a bit of common sense and experience. As we go to some things, we realize, like I said, look, if there's a trade-off, there's one school where we normally get 20+ applicants. So obviously we want to get their college fair. This is a school where the community counselors, the community is very supportive. They want their kids in Chicago. So, I discussed it with the office. We were just talking, we looked at this, and well, here's the scenario of my sister and myself. It's proven to be, it's a dud for us. And that doesn't make it a bad college fair. Their target market's not our target market. So we pick and choose. I think the best way that I've found is simply discussing it with the office. We just simply call the office, discuss it with admissions, saying, let's look at this, let's see where it goes. If it doesn't make sense, those that really do work with us.
Well, especially when you have 4 volunteers that are signed up for interviews.
4 volunteers in a state of 7.9 million, it's helpful.
Yeah.
But the more important thing is, it's a bit of common sense, and I think we have to leave it open-ended, just, communicate with you, this has been our results. There's always an exceptional student who does go to, it happens to be one of those schools, but an exceptional student is likely to find us anyway. They're very computer savvy, they do know what good schools are. I've had 2 students, I can say in my experience out of New Jersey, who did not come from schools we would target, who would not be in a place to look at, who were both amazingly excellent students, and both of them got EA admission here and did come to Chicago.
Michael, did you have something?
And I would just add that I think the marketing campaigns, the micro-marketing that colleges and universities are doing across the country is getting so good that these high school students are finding the University of Chicago before we find them in reality.
Right.
So people who are a good fit are finding the school first. So to your point, is there what yield are we getting out of the fairs? I can understand it from that perspective, because when I go to some of these fairs, some of the kids, they've done so much homework before they've even gotten to the table that I'm not really educating them on. But on the other hand, I am actually a proponent in general of going to the college fair, because in the area that I come from, Dallas-Fort Worth, it's Texas and the Southwest in general is underrepresented here in Chicago. It's a 2-hour plane ride away, and you're having very talented students go to public universities in Texas when they could probably find this might be a better fit for them. So there's still, even though you have that dynamic where people find us, it still helps to lay the groundwork to build a brand in excellent public and private schools in Dallas-Fort Worth, because it might yield results in the future, even though people come to the table aren't, may or they may not be direct.
Sir, did you have a question earlier?
Yeah. The focus on recruitment is great. What I haven't really heard too much about, and I'm curious about, is what do we do to follow up in terms of retention and also for graduate school?
Well, that to be quite honest, that isn't anything that we have a deliberate focus on right now, at least not in the admissions office. We really focus on the first year applicants, and our follow-up consists of if you have an alumni interview and you want to keep in touch with that student, especially if they're admitted, and then to ensure that they arrive. That's something that we're addressing right now. Long term, I think it's a bigger issue for the university. That's something that needs to be discussed and looked at.
What kind of follow-up are you talking about? Are you talking about follow-up with a college applicant? Are you talking about follow-up after they matriculated or follow-up after they graduate?
After they start here, you want retention. You got to recruit more folks if you want to keep your yield, right?
You want to keep your tension. That's the university.
Yeah, I think that's a bigger strategy question.
And there are alumni networks within CAPS and within the Alumni Association, like the Career Network, the Alumni Career Network, where students, they may reach out to you. You can encourage them to, that they can send an email to you within their 4 years of school if they have any questions and so forth. But over time, they may reach out to you to ask about, certain alumni networks, or they might ask their advisor, who we have really great advisors here as well. So.
I'm sorry, there was one here.
I think it's important to have alumni to talk about success story. Do they have a good experience from University of Chicago? And I also think I'm not the parents have a kid now is a senior at the University of Chicago. So I went through the admission part with her. At the time, she was not thinking about University of Chicago, and she was accepted by 7 other colleges. And the concern they had is the environment in the area, and also the school have a reputation. It's really hard on the courses. So as she come in here for sleepover, called school visit for one night, and when people are talking about success story, what they did, how much fun they have at school, and the environment as a community at the college was really great. So she made a decision that night. That's the college she wanted to go into. So I think have alumni talk about success story is very important. Also, I think someone mentioned earlier, there's the key point to address to 3,000 people in the community what we go out to talk about, because the kids have a kind of common concern. They go out to the website to search the popular
I have a question for you, and actually this is also for the chairs in the room. Would you feel that it would be helpful if we had sent you all, well, and this might not work, especially if you have larger regions, materials, or sent the materials to your volunteers to have to give to students when they interview them, or is that something that you can do better that they can find on their own, that you can do better in words and so forth?
You're talking about giving us materials so that the interviewers could give to the high school students?
After an interview, yes.
After an interview. Well, I already do that. I mean, I gave the equivalent of this thing right here. You guys had a nice, I thought last year had a nice, beautiful picture of my parkland. I usually hand them the 2-pager at the interview.
I like that thing that had like statistics about the last class.
The travel piece
Right.
thing?
And I mean, I think this is probably more targeted.
Mhm.
Certainly this is something that I would like to be able to give to students because I think one big issue for interviewers is talking about the core. And I went through a period when I was really upset because I was interviewing students that didn't seem to know that much about the core, and many of them had actually gone to the presentations in their high schools by our admissions people. And what I found out though is that we think that students are coming to these presentations and sitting there for like 45 minutes and absorbing all this. But what's happening is the admissions counselor is in a conference room or an office, and students are coming and going. And they might just hear part of the presentation, they might be there for all of it, but there can be a lot of disruption, and so they don't always get the information. The other thing is that they don't always really listen to what they're hearing. So I think having something like this that really lays it out in black and white for them is going to be useful.
Okay.
And by the way, I meant I gave them the equivalent of that WOCA training. That's the other thing. I gave them that. You guys have.
But what I liked about that other thing is that it had a picture. It's that one that's the south side smushed.
Yeah, that picture.
Yeah.
That's the one I made out
So
last
it
year. I
looks
like
like
that.
it's
So
within a 5-minute walk.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I tell everyone I've never seen the
Do y'all
school
wanna
like
pass
it
this out?
before, but here's a nice picture.
Because it gave them, when
It gave them a different.
people from my area think about going to an urban school, they think about Penn, they think about Columbia, they think about NYU.
Mhm.
And our campus is not like any of those campuses. It's in a neighborhood that is within the city.
Mhm.
And it's within, close proximity to being in the city. And I think it's important for people who haven't come to Chicago to see how close it is to the central part of the city and how easy it is to get around.
The percentage increase last week is very important, and it is even in the big point, talk a lot about that.
The 42%.
Increase, yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
On the issue of retention or yield, perhaps, it's been a long time since I interviewed for the Alumni Schools Committee. Maybe 20 years ago when I was living in the St. Louis area. And my frustration at that point was I interviewed some really good kids, was really advocating for them, and never heard whether they were accepted, and if they were accepted, whether they in turn came to UC. What's the feedback like now?
Well, I think that's an area that we could still use some improvement in. That's the communication aspect.
And I will say there has been improvement. 2 years ago I did it. I didn't know what happened to any of the 8 students I interviewed. Last year I got a full rundown. I said we'll learn how to use this quirky system we have here, but you get a full rundown of who was accepted and who matriculated.
Yeah, I had one of my 3 students was admitted, and I actually had a request to reach out to that student and ask them to yield. They had actually already emailed me by that point. I had gotten admitted. Yeah.
So the system's getting better. I don't know if it's perfect right now, but I at least know who's admitted.
Yes.
I just wanted to applaud the change a couple years ago to allow Chicago area alumni to participate in ASC. I think there were thousands of us chomping at the bit to participate for years who had been rebuffed. So, what thus far what I've asked to do is just the Skype interviews with international students, but I'm wondering whether that system is also being used or could be used for students in rural areas or areas that don't have as active ASC network. As was years ago when admissions was nothing what it is now, but I had requested and they were not able to
I think it's more of a coordination issue about how we get the requests that are in less populated areas, or how we get that out and maximize. I know our Connecticut region, they do Skype and phone interviews all over the world. Frankly, I look at our Chicago volunteers and I think of how we've deployed them to help on campus with on-campus events. I think it's a great resource we have at our disposal in our backyard. We have some, not to go into too many technical details, we have different systems in place that I think will let us better assign and make use of our volunteers. So I think it's coming. I don't know if it'll be perfect this year. I think it'll be kind of interim steps. Did I see it?
Because I interview students, am I on the committee?
Well, if you're interviewing students, I'm assuming that you work with a regional chair, so you're probably on the.
When they ask the EAs or the RNs, they'll ask for an alum interview.
Right. So you're on our committee.
So you are.
Yeah. That's the Alumni Schools Committee.
I'll make you a chair. You want to be a chair? You be a chair.
Where are you?
It's not one of those committees that you don't want to join because you're part of it.
I would hope it's a committee that everybody would want to join and be part of.
That's good. Well, one thing, it would be really nice to see if when I get that email that this student didn't make it or this student did, but wait a couple of days because they have to get it in the mail or something like that. I would like to see something put in place where I can, after I contact the student, have a research. Oh, I'm from Colorado. Okay, so first of all, it's really bad to have a student come and visit from Colorado in March or February because you got mountains there.
We're not going to win against that. No.
If I could arrange and really do what I can to convince them, I flew out here $150 round trip on Southwest. I was astonished. $30 parking in Denver, so for less than $200, well, $400, a student and a parent can come out here, and that's well worth it. So, is there somebody that I can get in touch with to help convince them coming out for a visit? Because I think once they come out, especially if they can come out at a time where they can sit down in some classes, it sells itself.
Well, we have those, Katrina and some of the other volunteers I mentioned before, we have the overnight programs where students are able not only to come out and take interviews and have information sessions, and of course, we will try to convince them to come with as much effort as we can. But they're also.
My response to you is, why didn't I know about that?
That's a good question.
Somebody dropped the ball and communicated. I need to know this stuff. I mean, I need to have this stuff. So I'm sorry for castigating you, but
No, it's the only way that we know is if it's conversations like this. So we can definitely make sure that we get those dates out.
And I think the yield part with the Alumni Schools Committee has been something that we've definitely been working on. It's been a work in progress for the past year, maybe 2 years especially. So with the yield events, with encouraging our alumni to reach out to the students and tell them a little bit more about their experiences and have an open ear to their questions. That's something that was a definite improvement from last year. And this year we're definitely
it's a building process.
One of the key focuses is to further see what we can do to reach out to our alumni and let them know about what they can do.
I want to do a quick time check. 11:15 is when there's going to be the group picture in front of the law school building. So maybe we could, if there's a few concluding questions, we can try to wrap that up. Or comments.
I was just going to say, as context, I think the admissions office has hired a new director 2 years ago.
Jim's arrival?
Yeah.
Year and a half ago.
So, it was hired by the president of the university, and he reports to the president of the university. So, the president of the university wanted to try, and one of the reasons why he selected Jim to be non-art to do this is he wanted to try and take admissions in a different direction. And frankly, I think the changes that have made over
sent her an email saying, hey, this student just got in. Do you mind send an email over and just welcome her? And she did, and that was good. And actually, that was I guess a couple of them actually ended up coming here. But I guess just because I didn't know who was in contact, I've been doing marketing for a long time, and all it takes is just
Well, that's the whole basis of why yield is so important to us, because how powerful is it just to get one email, get one follow-up phone call, right? So how, we have this vast network, so how do we better engage?
right.
You need to get the admission counselor who covers
Denver is Troy.
Troy, yeah.
Yeah.
And your chair as well will also stand with Eliason.
It's in Colorado Springs.
Right now?
Oh. He is from Colorado Springs.
Yes.
Colorado's one territory for us, yeah.
Because, and on the visiting part, I worked in the office while I was a student here. Every single admitted student is invited to come and visit. That's just part of.
Well, it's one thing
Yeah.
to be invited, it's another thing
Mm-hmm.
to be heard.
Yeah. And when we call all the early action admitted students and the phone-a-thon, the first thing we say is you've got to come out.
But I think we need to make that connection, though, because we have two different tracks going, right? The admissions office knows all this is going on, but it would be really important to let our alumni volunteers know that students are going to be contacted at this time with this information. Do what you can to support our messages or encourage.
And